Welcome everyone to today's talk on sleep medicine. My name is Dr. Andrew Ng. I'm a respiratory and sleep physician based in Sydney. My medical degree is from Sydney University and my PhD in sleep medicine is from New South Wales University. I also run a postgraduate sleep medicine course at the University of Western Australia. Last week I discussed the importance of sleep medicine and the consequences of not recognising and treating sleep disorders. In particular, I highlighted major disasters which have been linked to sleep deprivation, which can have a similar effect to being under the influence of alcohol, leading to poor decision making as mentioned in this international paper. I also left you with a picture which represents yet another sleep disorder. In the next 5 minutes I will explain this picture, but first, in order to do that, I need to go over some basic sleep physiology, namely sleep architecture. When we sleep, we cycle through different stages of sleep. We generally start in non-REM sleep, specifically stage 1 non-REM sleep, then progress to stage 2 non-REM sleep, followed by stage 3 non-REM sleep, which is also called slow wave sleep. We previously also had stage 4 non-REM sleep, as seen in this slide, but more recently it was realised that this was so similar to stage 3 non-REM sleep that we grouped them together. So, after stage 3 non-REM sleep, which as I mentioned is also called slow wave sleep, we progress to REM sleep, which stands for rapid eye movement sleep, where we do a lot of our dreaming and problem solving. This completes one cycle of sleep and usually takes about 90 minutes. We then start again and often have 4 to 5 sleep cycles per night, with each cycle being slightly different. More slow wave sleep occurs in the initial sleep cycles, whereas more REM sleep occurs during the later cycles. This is important because certain sleep disorders occur more during different stages of sleep. For example, sleepwalking in children occurs during slow wave sleep and generally within the first 2 hours of sleep onset, whereas other conditions such as obstructive sleep apnea are worse during REM sleep, which predominantly occurs in the second half of the night. For more details on sleep architecture and sleep disorders, and more from this talk, please see below. Getting back to this picture, it in fact represents someone having a parasomnia. Parasomnias in general occur in children and occur during slow wave sleep. Most grow out of them by adulthood, but they can remain. Parasomnias include things like night terrors, sleepwalking, sleep eating, and even sleep sex, which is a subject for another talk. Late onset parasomnias can also occur. These start in adulthood and usually occur during a different part of sleep, namely REM sleep, and can herald the start of a neurodegenerative disease. The particular parasomnia depicted in this image is an example of a non-REM parasomnia called homicidal sleepwalking. There have been dozens of such reports in the literature, but this was the first case where a lawyer used this defense to gain an acquittal for his client. So what actually happened? Well, the Boston scandal, as it is known, involved a Mr. Albert Jackson Tyrrell, who left his wife in 1845 to be with Maria Bickford, a prostitute living in a Boston brothel. Tyrrell fell in love with her, his affection was returned, and they lived together as husband and wife. However, she never abandoned her profession, much to his dislike. Early one morning, after loud noises emanated from her room in the brothel, Bickford was found brutally murdered. Tyrrell, having last been seen with her, was accused of her murder, who then hired Rufus Choate, a famous Boston attorney who was well known for his innovative defense strategies. What are the details? Well, on October 27, 1845, Tyrrell was seen to have visited Bickford's bedroom in the brothel after her last customer had left, and, using a razor, slit her throat from ear to ear. He also allegedly set 3 fires in the brothel, which awakened the owner, who discovered the body of Bickford and called the police. Tyrrell fled to New Orleans, but he was arrested in December and returned to Boston for trial. The public were outraged, fed by sensational newspaper accounts. Not only had he left his wife to live with Bickford and was under a charge of adultery, but he had been seen on the premises shortly before the body was found. A bloody razor lay near her body, bits of Tyrrell's clothing and his cane were at the crime scene, and fires had been set nearby, as if to destroy evidence. So what happened during the trial? Although many witnesses could testify to Tyrrell's affair with Bickford and to the presence of Tyrrell at the brothel that evening, there were no eyewitnesses to the actual crime. Choate emphasised to the jury that the evidence was therefore all circumstantial, as no one had actually seen Tyrrell kill Bickford. Moreover, Tyrrell had no motive to kill Bickford. Choate, who had been playing chess with his friend, who just happened to be reading The Somnambulist, explained that Tyrrell, who was a habitual sleepwalker, could have murdered Bickford under the influence of a nightmare or somnambulistic trance, and therefore could not be held responsible. In the 1840s, there were no medical explanations for sleepwalking, and medical experts differed over its cause. With an oratorial flourish, Choate read to the jury popular descriptions of violence attributed to sleepwalking and reminded them that his client's guilt could not be definitively determined. Therefore, after less than 2 hours of deliberation, the jury returned its verdict of not guilty. What's the significance of this case? By the way, he was also acquitted of the arson charges, and these acquittals marked the first time in American legal history that sleepwalking was successfully used as a defence in a murder prosecution. There is also another more recent and famous case from Canada in 1989 that you may be aware of, involving a Mr. Kenneth James Parks. He was a 25-year-old married man who drove 20 kilometres to kill his mother-in-law. Again, there was no motive, despite having large gambling debts, and again he was acquitted. Interestingly, in addition to a history of sleepwalking, he had very unusual EEG findings during a sleep study. This is electroencephalography. This showed that he was awakening from slow-wave sleep, which is quite unusual and would likely be a risk factor. Thus, he avoided a life sentence, plus he avoided a psychiatric hospital, because he wasn't found insane. Subsequently, the Supreme Court of Canada upheld the acquittal. He was placed on a medication which I suspect might be clonazepam, although many medications are sometimes used, and he has had no further issues since. Thank you everyone for your attention, and before I go, I will leave you with another picture, which again represents a sleep disorder. Have a think about it, and I will explain all in my next video. Bye for now.